Well, hello there. This is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. This was a game of the Four Knights game, Scotch Variation. Four Knights Scotch. It's not an opening I play against very frequently. So I thought this would be a good example of just demonstrating my way of navigating and thinking through a relatively unfamiliar opening, especially an opening that is on the more aggressive side. And I think this approach actually works reasonably well whenever you do face something unfamiliar that is aggressive. Let's go take a look. I've got the black pieces, of course. And the Four Knights Scotch, of course, begins with the double king's pawn opening. So that's e4, e5, and then basically all the knights come out. Knight 1, knight 2, and there we go. Four Knights game and Four Knights Scotch, now the immediate d4. So the Four Knights Scotch is kind of like a slightly slower and more solid version of the Scotch game. So the Scotch game, you wouldn't develop all four knights before playing d4. Now, because all the knights are out, it means that some of the more unbalanced type attacks that white could deliver are not so unbalanced, because they've got their defenses, there. But at the same time, for us, for black, we're not necessarily needing to scramble so much either, because again, our knights are out. So here, the usual approach I would take here, just as with any Scotch, is to exchange that central pawn. So captures, captures. And in this position, the goal is develop the bishop. So the knight has only one defender, so otherwise we could just trade it down. So here, let's bring another piece out, the king's bishop to c5, very, very normal. So now we've got two attackers, only one defender, and if the knight moves, we've got a very, very nice vision on the weak f-pawn as well. So that's good. And I thought that most likely they're going to develop their queen's bishop, their dark square bishop, and that's what they did, bishop to e3. Now, here the issue is, if they take, my bishop is now hanging. So potentially, do I move the bishop maybe a second time? However, moving a bishop a second time in this setting kind of means that, I'm letting white get the flow, letting them get the initiative because I had to move the same piece twice. Now, Stockfish would say that actually dropping the bishop back to b6 is actually the most accurate. But here, I actually just wanted to clarify the tension in the center. Given that white was the one who initiated the Four Knights game, Scotch Variation, I must assume that they're better at this opening, that they chose this opening. Very likely they'll be reasonable at it, you would assume. Well, I really don't understand it very well. So what can I do? Well, my idea is let's just trade down. So once you trade down, you simplify. Now, trading down, I suspect it was probably not as good for me, that white would probably capture some advantage. However, by trading down the attack, I suspect even if white has an advantage, it's not going to be a massive one. And so potentially then we're both out of theory, enter the middle game with less pieces, more simple, hopefully gain the advantage in the middle game. So that's what I did. Knight captures knight, they capture, and here I slide my bishop out of the way, thought about taking, but then they end up at the end of the sequence having their queen develop. So I didn't necessarily want that. So now bishop to b4 with the pin of the knight to the king, so effectively winning back a little bit of tempo. You can see Stockfish wants to see fireworks right away, queen e7. Thought about that, I just wasn't sure. And basically that's, if they take, I get to take back with the queen. Again, taking back with some development. Here, I think white wasn't sure what to do either. Their best move was queen to d3, which I think is a bit obscure. E5 worked as well. I think that may be a little bit more obvious, but then, of course, you're potentially struck by queen E7. That's reasonably logical. Here, I think white wasn't sure what to do, and they actually opted to trade down as well. So maybe they got sucked into my flow. I was trading down pieces. Maybe they felt uncomfortable. They decided to trade down as well. But this is good for me because with this capture, they move that bishop twice, and I end the sequence potentially with my queen developed. Queen captures bishop on f6. And in this position, I had a sense that I might be slightly ahead. And Stockfish, I think, agrees. It actually went from about +1 to roughly -0.5. So I captured a little bit of the advantage. And because I had a sense that I had captured the advantage, that is pinned. My goal now was actually just to trade down. Let's just get rid of white's attack completely, enter middle game with much less pieces. Potentially I would gain the advantage. And I saw if I took, potentially that would damage their pawn structure as well. So they move their queen, that's fine. Captures, they capture this way. Captures, no queens left. And now at the end of move 11, I've short castled. Now, white is notionally a little bit ahead. You know, they've got a pawn in the center, but now isolated double pawns on the c file. This is basically a little bit better for black. And even though, you know, Stockfish doesn't think the advantage difference is that large, I think it's just easier to play here for black. So yes, none of these are developed, but it also means these pawns are pristine. I can do what I want with them. All right, so white now tries to, you know, push forward, try to take advantage of space. That's fine. I play d6, open up that light square diagonal. They develop now their bishop, makes sense. I now can take over the semi-open e-file, also pinning, thinking that might be a potential move. Here, I have to admit, I wasn't entirely sure what to do. I thought I wanted to block and blunt that attack. I wanted to maintain my vision on the e-file. Yeah, okay, other rook, that makes sense. Here, you know, I connect my rooks, also developing my bishop. They push forward, and that's an inaccuracy. However, I don't see it. The reason that's an inaccuracy is that I can pretty much just take right away. Because if I take and they take back this way, then basically they have yet another isolated pawn. So that is potentially good for me. Or if I take and they take this way, then captures again. At the end of it, they end up with another pawn island. So again, better for me. I didn't recognize this during the actual game. It's something I think I need to really think about more explicitly as I'm playing the middle game. Here I thought, you know, maybe I could force trade their bishop. So that's what I decided to do. Bishop to b5. However, that's an inaccuracy and we actually just go back to 0, 0, 0. However, they take captures. I think here I might be just slightly ahead. They have an attack on my double pawns. Now the thing is, if they take my double pawns, it's kind of like just, you know, undoubling my pawns. Well, I've got an attack on one of their pawns, their outside pawn, which isn't doubled. So this trade, they take one of my doubled B pawns, I take their outside A pawn. That trade is better for me. So capture, you can see it's slightly better now for black again. And more importantly, my rook has infiltrated onto the second rank. So rooks on the 2nd and 7th ranks are often very powerful. All right, so now I take that as well. Here they probably should have just taken this way. This way they give me the full e-file and also allow my second rook to infiltrate on the 2nd rank. Here I actually thought, so I took this way, I actually thought I had unstoppable checkmate. Now, and no, that's a bit of tunnel vision on my part because that's not correct. However, it's actually difficult for white to find the right move. Can you find the correct move for white? Rook and pawn endgames are just complicated. So my thinking here is I can take, check, king forced to move here, rook here, capture, check, king forced to move back, and then the other rook comes out and that would be mate. So that's what I was thinking. And so to prevent that, and also to immediately threaten backmate for myself, what white needs to do is to move their f1 pawn to a1. Firstly, giving room for the king to move, and also threatening back rank mate. So that was their best move. White didn't see that, but they did see that they had a problem there, and so they moved their b5 pawn, rook to g5, trying to defend. That is not as accurate. I've got an advantage here now. Basically, there's a bit of a target, and, potentially they're still hanging pawns. So here, firstly, capture, get rid of that potential risk. They try to push, that's not right. I attack, that's inaccurate actually. Stockfish says, look, just take the material. They move back, we do a little bit of a dance here. Apparently just pushing the b pawn was best. Rook and pawn endgames, they are quite complicated. And unfortunately for white, they were playing really fast, 15 plus 10 game. They finished a game, with more than 15 minutes on the clock. I think they might have actually done a bit of a mouse slip. I think maybe they wanted to play rook to b1, which would make sense. Unfortunately, they played rook c1, captures it here. They opted to resign. Anyway, good game, GG. The big takeaway from this game is that sometimes an approach against an unfamiliar aggressive attack in the opening is to undermine it by forcing trades of the attacking pieces, even if the trades are slightly disadvantageous. Very often, you'll be able to make up for it in the middle game. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.